All right, and there is Christian Sadler sneaking into the frame. Let's see if we can encourage him to come back. I don't know why he's being a little shy there. Something's happening. At any rate, Christian is with us this morning. He is the leader of Salt Lake Area's Team Elevate. He is one of the co-founders of Team Elevate, and he is just a highly sought after speaker. We're excited to welcome him this morning, and he is one of the people that I've always thought it'd be fun to see a movie about his life. He grew up in Magna. It was a loving household. It was a good household, had its challenges, didn't have everything that they would have liked, and he decided life was going to be different for him. And he started out, and of course, the first time you look for it, you don't find it, maybe the second time or the third time. But he kept going, and now he is a real estate developer, a real estate investor. He is an educator. He is a mentor. He is just an awesome guy, and he's here with us today. Christian, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Ron. How are you?
Fantastic. So glad you're here.
I am glad to be here, and I'm grateful to have you on with us this morning and starting things off. So thank you so much for everything that you do for this team. I know that you just continually serve behind the scenes, and many people don't realize the extra time that you put in. They may think, just you showing up for these calls is a lot, but I know that you show up after the calls and you're the ones downloading the recordings and uploading them to YouTube and putting them onto the Facebook. And I just want to say how grateful I am, Ron, for you of taking on, these morning calls and really making them something special for the community. So, folks, I decided that it's been a long time since I've done an open forum call where I just leave it up to you to choose the topic. And so that's what I've decided to do today. I know that oftentimes this is really the opportunity that people have with me directly in asking questions and having their topics covered. And so I want to make sure that I don't always hog the topics, and therefore I've left it as an open forum today. So what I'd like you to do is just chat into the chat line what questions you have, what area of your business you would like to focus on, and let's dive deep into a mastermind this morning. Ooh, all right, Tyler Mead. What are some of your favorite power questions? All right, I'm going to give you some power questions for real estate, and I'm going to give you some power questions for marketing as well. So, power questions for real estate. There's really a few questions that I ask on almost every single deal. Oh, wait, what happened here? Sorry. I accidentally clicked on somebody's video, and here, let me do this. I'm going to share my screen. No, I'm not, because hold on, guys, having some technical difficulties here. I'm not sure how I did this. Okay, here, we're back. Now you can see my finger again, or at least I can. All right, power questions for real estate. Almost every single question, or every single deal, I ask these questions. So, first question, and I have to apologize, guys. For some reason, the last 2 days, my computer is not allowing me to share a whiteboard on Zoom. Let me do this instead. I think I know what I can do. I'm going to share my screen, because I'm sure you're going to want these at the very least, typed out. So let's go to Word. Open up a Word document. And blank document. All right, power questions, real estate. First, now you're going to ask this, and oftentimes they're not going to tell you, right? So this is really what you're trying to figure out. But your goal here with these questions is to find out motivation, okay? Your key is this a motivated seller, or, is it a need to sell, or is it a want to sell? If it's a want to sell and there's not a lot of motivation, then you are like 95% less likely to have a deal on your hands. Let's call it that. Okay. So, why are you selling? That's the one that they rarely answer. Okay. Second, when do you need to sell by? That's when you start figuring out motivation. All right. And 3, if you aren't able to sell by that time, what are your plans? Or what will you do? One or the other. So if you aren't able to sell by that time, what are your plans? Or what will you do? This gives you a real insight into their motivation. Why are you selling? People are kind of going to dance around the subject oftentimes. Now, sometimes, don't get me wrong, they're going to open up to you. And part of the key here is if you've built any rapport in the first place. So I will tell you that I don't jump into these questions first, okay? A lot of times if you jump into these questions first and they don't feel comfortable talking to you, that's when they're more likely to be hesitant to share. So what I really do is I start with asking lots of questions about the house. So I'll ask them, what kind of repairs are needed on the house in order to bring it up to par? And usually they're going to say not a lot, right? And then you're going to start diving deeper into questions. So you're going to say, okay, well, let me ask it a different way, Mr. Seller. If I were going to make this home like a brand new home, what would I need to do? And then they're still going to say, well, it's in pretty good shape. And, well, I guess there's this one thing. And then they'll tell you a few things. And then you're going to start going through the different parts of the house. So I usually start with the roof and work my way down. It's pretty easy that way, right? So when was the last time you repaired the roof or replaced the roof? Do you know how old the windows are? Is there any holes in the wall? Is there any water damage? And so on and so forth, and you guys get the point, right? And once you've got them really comfortable talking to you about the property itself, oftentimes they've started to become more comfortable in sharing about their personal situation. So, power questions for real estate. Why are you selling? When do you need to sell by? 3, if you aren't able to sell by that time, what are your plans? All right, now, power questions for marketing. And we're going to call it for closing, more so than marketing. All right, and when we call it closing, guys, I want you to make sure you understand that closing is probably an improper term for enrolling somebody in this business because really there's not a lot of closing. It's more of an opening. I think you guys would agree with me that very little closed off in your life when you started this business and much, much more opened, right? You opened the opportunity, you opened your mind, you opened, the possibilities for your future. And so, I just wanted to throw that out there. So, power questions for closing on the marketing side of the business. I like to take people through a process as I'm going through, the opening or the close, right? So if everything went the way, oops, you desired, looking 5 years down the road, what would your life look like in order for you to feel like this was all worth it? So I word this question and I try and include different parts of the ways of thinking. So looking 5 years down the road, what would it feel like, right? I'm trying to tie in to the different ways of communicating that they communicate, right? So if everything went the way you desired, looking 5 years down the road, what would your life look like in order for you to feel like this was all worth it? And then I'll add in some other words there, such as, think about, in order for you to feel successful, what would your life be 5 years from now? And I get them to talk and I get them to open up. So sometimes that's very simple, guys. Sometimes they go into and they share, man, if I just owned my own house, I've always wanted to own my own house. I've never had that opportunity. If I could own my own house, that would be great. And sometimes they go into like, hey, by then I want to be making at least $20,000 a month in passive income and, all of those things. So you want them to really dive into the feeling of it. And so you can ask some more qualifying questions along the way. So you can even say, okay, put yourself at that point in time. What sounds do you hear? What are some of the key sounds that you hear? What do you see? What does it feel like? Right? So you're wanting to tie in the different ways of communicating, especially if you don't know yet what their primary communication model is, right? And then once you've gotten them to really dive deep into that, then you're going to say, okay, if you look that same 5 years down the road, and you haven't done this, if nothing changes, what will your life look like then? And so same thing, get them to open up, get them to really dive into it, right? Get them to think about all these different ways of why, that's a not good scenario, right? You want them to think about all the positive, and then you want to think about all of the negative. And what happened here? Somehow I typed over the last question. Sorry about that, guys. And mute. And let me figure out how to get to them. Participants, mute. All right. No more coming off mute. All right. Well, I'm not sure where this is at, but if you look 5 years down the road, the first question, and everything went the way you desired, what would your life look like in order for you to feel like you were successful with this business? That's the first question. Second question is, if you look at that same 5 years down the road and you haven't done this, if nothing changes, what will your life look like then? And then, obviously, the next question is, it sounds like you need to do this, doesn't it? So there's some power questions for you, Tyler, on the real estate side and on the marketing side. You want some things that you can really help people move toward the best decision of their life. There you go. One is for motivation on the real estate. One is for marketing. All right. In the chat box, somebody else has come out here. Wanda, which strategies do you use to help growing your team? Well, Wanda, you, my friend, are already an expert at this. So the strategies that I'm using for growing my team is really, type that in there, growing my team. So really the thing that I'm using for growing my team, first of all, is personal production. If they don't see you working, then oftentimes they are not working either. So I could show you, Wanda. Let me show you something. This is something that I do. This, and by the way, don't go request access to this because it's for my team. It's just something to do a little extra. And what I've done is I've created a Christians team, or Christians Renatus team mastermind. And so in this team, now I've got my blitz going on, so we've got some of those things happening and whatnot. But here's what I do. I've got live three-way phone calls. I've got live dials of me making phone calls. I have deal analysis in here. I've got other people doing live dials within here. So this is one of the things that I do to encourage my team is I get myself, first of all, in here doing the work, and then I encourage them to get in here and do the work as well. So this whole group is just filled with people taking action. And what the word I use for this, Wanda, is positive peer pressure. Okay? So in order to grow my team, I use positive peer pressure. What I've learned is if you get people around other people who are successful, they ultimately either go away or become successful themselves. It's the interesting thing about it that I've learned is if you are unwilling to become a complainer and you happen to be surrounded by complainers and you call them out on their complaining, pretty soon they either stop complaining or they just don't hang around you anymore. And so oftentimes this is a very difficult concept for people in the beginning. I know it was for me. You got to understand that my friends before Renatus, before getting involved in all of this personal development, the loyalty that I had with my friends was so high. I mean, we literally trusted our lives with each other with the type of lifestyle that we were living, right? With all the stupid stuff that we were doing, with all of the, violence that we were kind of in the thick of, we were literally trusting our lives with each other. So there was a lot of loyalty there that was deep rooted. And in the beginning, I felt like I would be breaking that loyalty by leaving them behind, so to speak. And what I had to realize for myself was I was not leaving them behind. I was simply choosing my path. And here's the thing. You can't be on two ships at once. You can't sail towards two destinations. So if you're going to continue to surround yourself with people who aren't going far and who aren't going the direction you want your life to be, you are essentially drifting aimlessly towards what you do not want. So at some point in time, you're going to have to make the decision that you're going to change your friends. Now, that doesn't mean you actually get rid of those old friends, right? I still have very close ties with most of my friends from the past. We just don't hang out very often because they're on a different path than me. Now, there's a few of them who have chosen to take on their path of moving towards a better future. And some of them have done some amazing things. I don't know if Clay's on here, but Clay can attribute. He knows the path that we were on before. I mean, I used to go over to his house like every single day and drink myself into oblivion. And so, that was in high school. That was like borderline probably junior high school. And both of us have changed our path, have changed our future. And so when you think about it with your team here, they have all of this peer pressure from their old life taking them towards where they don't want to be oftentimes. And so what you need to do, if you want them to grow, is surround them with people who are in a growth mindset, who are achieving the type of results that they want. This is why I'm very selective with my time. I still surround myself with those people that I love and my family, and I make sure that I give to them as much as I can. And I also make sure that I'm surrounding myself with people who are achieving more than me, even if it's only through their books or their podcasts or their Facebook or their YouTube. Like, in the world we live in today, it is so easy to find people who have achieved higher levels of success and surround yourself with them through the content that they've put out there into the world. So that's what I've done with my team here in Renatus, is I've just encouraged them by taking the action and showing them exactly what it takes. Does that answer your question, Wanda? You're very welcome. All right. I have time for one short other topic, and then I got to jump off this line. So is there anybody else, is there anything else that I can share with you folks today to help your business grow? Yeah, Tyler, go ahead. So Tyler, Maria. Okay, Maria, how do you transition from form to real estate? So usually if you're using form, it's naturally going to turn, because in that marketing or message or money, you're going to move towards talking about what you do for a living, and or your message. And oftentimes what you can use, just to make it easy, is use the I just learned script. So I'm sure that if you go into the Facebook group, you can type in I just learned, and there's probably a bunch of different people that have trained on this because it's worked for so many people. So oftentimes you can just transition with oh yeah, I just learned. So they're telling you about, well, I work for yada, 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 and I do this. Oh, that's interesting. I just learned how, and then do that. Now, Tyler, let's answer your question real quick. You said briefly, what do I like to cover in my follow-up? All right, my follow-up is questions. questions, and then I want to model Can you guys see my screen now? Somehow. No audio. Interesting. Okay. Well, maybe it was time for me to be done. Can you guys hear me at all now? Okay, you can hear me. And we can hear somebody else. All right. So model their path. And then when you ask questions and you've modeled their path, then you want to ask for the order. AFTO. This is really what it looks like. And that's a little bit different in every scenario, Tyler. So sometimes I ask questions and they just say, I just need to know how to fund this thing. And if that's all they need to know and they've already made a decision, I am not going to talk them out of the decision. I'm going to go into modeling what their path of finding the money looks like. And the way that we do that is we go through a whole bunch of different funding options. We relate stories of how other people have done it. And then we ask them, out of all these paths, what do you see being the most likely way for you to fund? Now, sometimes it goes down to they're like, well, what is this? What does it look like as far as the education? And then I'm going to model that. I'm going to actually I'm going to log them in, or I'm going to log myself in and let them watch. And I'm going to go into the classes and I'm going to share a portion of the class and I'm going to let them experience that, right? Oftentimes, the most powerful part is they're usually wondering, what does this look like getting into my first deal? And so that's where I'll go through the 3 phases to your first deal. And then after I get through the 3 phases of your first deal, almost every single time I just relate back and say, well, the first step is getting to day 1. With day 1, we got to get your education funded. So we can put your order in right now. We can't unlock your education until you've actually funded that education. So have you thought about how you're going to fund it? And then at that point, if they already know, if they've already said, yes, I've got this money and I'm doing this, then great, we'll put in their order. If they say, well, that's the thing is, I've thought about it, but I'm not quite sure, we go into the funding. So it's questions and then modeling their path. And this can be either sample education, 3 phases to the first deal, and funding. Really, between those 3 things, we usually cover all of it. So here's one little extra for you, Tyler, is I'm actually doing the group follow-up this Friday. So if you want to kind of see it live in person, come this Friday, and I'll be doing the follow-up in Sandy. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate y'all being here, and go out there and make it an amazing Thursday. It's game night in most states. Get your people there.